What is going on, YouTube? Northeast Ohio Sports Cards here for a Marvel video. Yes, I know. Marvel trading card video. Been a while since we've done one of these. Have had some my own personal grading experiences and selling experiences. So I felt it was time for a little update. It has been now basically a full 2 months since the Marvel trading card market went nutty. Kind of happened late January into February, and then things really went crazy early February, and then they've settled down as March has moved on. And we're mostly going to talk about Marvel 90 Universe Series 1, 1990 Marvel Universe Series 1. So before we get too far into it, because I forgot, YouTube stuff down below, like, comment, sub, notification bells, all that different nonsense. And let's keep going. So Marvel Universe 90 boxes spiked way up to almost 3,000. We have the chart up here in Market Movers. I'm using Market Movers chart sealed wax feature, which allows you to basically chart in reality just about anything, but it is designed for charting sealed boxes. You have to do a little bit of manual cleanup. It does a pretty good job pulling most of the data that you want. Depending on how people word their listings, you get a little bit of, sealed or one box with 36 sealed packs, that kind of shenanigans that you need to edit out. That took me about 5 minutes, maybe not even. And then that gives you this nice little clean graph that we're looking at in front of us. The only limitation to chart sealed wax is you don't get to control the date range. So this is going back basically 30 days. Which is fine. You could see where the market took off, topped out, and then it has now pulled back. And it appears, and the reason why I like looking at these graphs is you could see it spiked up very quickly, peaked out at about $3,000, and then came down fairly quickly. Not surprisingly, there was no way this price was going to sustain. And if you thought that it was, you just don't understand how these markets work. But what it has done now is kind of pulled back. And as you can see on the graph here, it has basically leveled out between 13 and 1400, maybe even down to 12-ish. But what you don't see anymore are these big cliffs with it dropping off, at least for now. But it seems to have settled out about here. And to be honest, this feels about right. Now, that being said, these things were going for a couple $100. So they've still tripled in value depending on when and where that you bought. And even if you bought up here, you're not feeling great, but if you ripped it to grade, you might still be able to turn out okay with it. Who knows? As has been well documented on this channel, these are fickle beasts when it comes to grading. So at around this price, the $1,200 to $1,400 mark, I feel like you could do okay, but you're going to need to get a little bit lucky, and you're going to need to know what you're doing when it comes to grading. So if you have a lot of experience grading and you know what to look for, how to submit, what you shouldn't submit, I think you could do pretty decent with it. I will tell you, I spent $1,300 on my box. I had 2 boxes, one that I bought really cheap last year, and one that I picked up in the very beginning of the ramp up for $1,300. So before we got anywhere close to the $2,000 price, because I wanted to rip and grade one, but I still wanted to hold one sealed. So I bought a second one. So I ripped that one. Well documented on the channel. I sent off 4 cards. I got those back. I sent those Super Express, so $200 per. So I was into the box for $1,900. $1,300 for the box, $600 in grading fees, plus you throw in an extra $30 for shipping, maybe. So we'll call it $1,900 to keep the math simple. I had 2 black suit Spider-Man, Stan Lee, and another black suit Spidey. The black suit Spidey did not grade. The 2 black suits came back 10s, and the Stan Lee came back a 9. The 2 black suits I sold for a combined $2,500, and the Stan Lee I sold for $325. So I got $2,850 out of those 3 cards. $1,300 on the box, $600 on the grading fees. So I'm up about $600 just on those 3 cards. So you could see how you could still do pretty good. Now, PSA 10 prices are pulling back. Once again, the early PSA 10 prices were not sustainable because more were going to come onto the market. Not that surprising. But if you pull the right characters, you could still do quite well. Let's pop over and look at some PSA 10 prices. Let me refresh this because some auctions just ended and we'll see if it picked it up yet. It didn't yet. So Wolverine, this one just sold literally about 10 minutes before I started recording this video for $600. Here's a Thanos for $600, another Thanos for $840, a Venom for $630. I'm just scrolling down the list here. A brown suit Wolverine for $1,500. The brown suit Wolverine seems to be doing better than the blue, but it just kind of depends. Here's a Venom for $860. Just scrolling down here, trying to find anything else spicy. Here's a Loki for $525. Wolverine most valuable cover for $600. A combo of the 2 different cap cards for $3,800. That's pretty nice. So and that just sold on Friday, so 3 days ago. So you can see here's some lesser characters: Phoenix for $400, Wasp for $275, another Wolverine for $1,500. So prices are a little all over the place. Here's a Black Suit Spidey for $1,000, an Archangel for $400, $600, $400 for like random X-Men characters, $400 for a Fantastic Four. You kind of get the point here. Green Goblin for $570-ish. Stan Lee PSA 10 for $2,000. Different Wolverine for $1,300. One of these just sold tonight for about $600, so the price seems to have come down on that a little bit. But regardless, at about $1,300 a box, you could do kind of okay grading this. The problem, really, the thing that threw the wrench into this whole situation is the PSA price increases. Now, if you got your cards in prior to the PSA price increases, I think you're doing okay. So my box, I am up $600 on at present. I have at least about another 20 cards at PSA, some at regular service at $50 a card, and some at express service at $75 a card. And it's probably actually a little bit less than 20 if we're just strictly talking Marvel Universe Series 1. I have some Series 2 mixed in there and some Jim Lee X-Men mixed in there. But I'd probably say a solid dozen of those cards are Marvel Universe. So the $600 profit that I already have should be more than enough to cover my grading fees that I have out there, or close to it. So even if I would dud out on those, the box is basically a wash. And I've been able to make a complete set, and I have a bunch of singles I could piece out if I wanted to like nickel and dime my way in the more profitability, which I may end up making up like character lots or something like that. So assuming I can hit a couple PSA 10s out of the dozen or so cards that I have out there, and they are all bigger key cards. It's Wolverines, it's Venoms, it's Avengers, stuff like that. Some of the most valuable covers that do quite well. I forget everything that I have out there, but it's a lot of Wolverine and some Venom, Punisher maybe. Regardless, it's more key characters. It's not like the random fly-by-nights. So if I just pull a couple 10s, I should be sitting pretty, even if I don't get those back for another month, because I assume prices are going to continue to stabilize. The PSA 9 market, and this is where the PSA price increases have really caused trouble. So the PSA 9 market's doing okay on the key characters. So a Cosmic Spider-Man went for $200. Stan Lee is sitting at about $300. Caps in the mid 150s to 200s. These prices kind of jump around quite a bit within the normal range. Here's an Ultron for only $50, a Green Goblin for $150, an Iron Man for $325, a couple battle cards, Spider-Man and X-Men for the mid 150s, another Stan Lee for $325. What else do we have? Here's a Cap for $200, Black Suit Spider-Man for $170, a Venom for $170. So you could get over 100 pretty easy as long as you're submitting the right characters and the right cards. So the problem comes in with the PSA price increases. You only have a couple options and none of them are great. So you have the $25 per card and you send it off and you get it back in 8 months to a year. Or the next jump up is $100 a card. So, and that's not even like that quick a turnaround time. You're probably talking 2 months, best case scenario, for regular service at $100 a card. And that might be semi optimistic. You might even be looking at a little bit longer with the massive boatload of stuff that they got right before price increase. So I think you're really forced, if you want to execute this plan going forward, to submit at a slower rate, and whatever it is when they come back is what the market is. I don't see these things completely cratering or anything like that. I think the PSA 10s at minimum are always going to hold a decent value going forward. You know, are you going to get $1,000 for an Iron Man or 2,000 for a Black Panther in a year? I don't know. Nobody knows. But I don't think they're going to be $5 either. I think you're still going to be able to turn a pretty good profit submitting the right characters. It's not like Marvel's going away anytime soon. And if you're willing to risk it with the 1 year turnaround time, and you're also talking about less grading fees at $25 per card, even if PSA 10s drop down to $200, you're doing pretty okay, depending on what you got into the box price for, or if you were buying singles. I don't like the idea of buying singles and chasing the raw market. I think that's dangerous unless you can have the cards in hand to look at. I feel like most of the ones bought on eBay are going to be tricky. At the $100 a card level with a not super fast turnaround time, like still a couple months, that gets riskier, especially if you can't pull the 10. Because as you can see here with a 9 at $100 a card, now we're playing with fire, because there's a decent chance that at best case scenario, you're making a very slight profit, unless you're being very selective on the cards that you're sending. You know, if you send a Cosmic Spider-Man in the PSA for $100 per card to grade, plus you have the cost of whatever it was to obtain the card, plus shipping to and from, insurance, etc. You sell it on eBay for $200. Now you're factoring in 13% eBay fees, and these are all the little things that people forget about that add up when you start, you know, working at the edges. And now we have a very narrow profit margin. As long as you think you could break even on the 9s and you have a decent shot at some 10s, then you might be able to pull it off okay. I think the best play is you just send them in at the $25 mark, or $20 mark, I guess it would be, because they're not ultra modern, and send them in, forget about them, and see what happens in a year. I don't think you're going to get hurt doing that, because like I said, PSA 10 specifically, I do not see coming all the way back down. The other thing you can look at is one of the other grading companies. Now, here's the problem. SGC is $25 a card, but SGC cards, slabbed cards, don't sell that well. CSG/CGC would be the obvious choice, especially if CGC decided to do them, because the slabs would then match the comic book counterparts, but they're not taking comic cards at the moment. So why CGC would not do comic book cards makes absolutely no sense to me. That seems like a massive oversight. HGA, the fancy new kid on the block, I actually think comic book cards could look really good in their slabs. If you guys are not familiar with HGA, they do a color match. So imagine an HGA slab with a red and blue splash to match a Spider-Man costume, or a black and white splash to match, you know, a symbiote or a Venom, or a red, white, and blue to match Captain America. I'll see if I could find it on one of the other screens while I'm talking. But, you know, so that's a possibility as well. But the problem is they are not taking Marvel cards either. They have said that they're probably about a month or two away, but there's a whole other problem there with them queuing cards and all that stuff, because they cap the number of submissions that they take per week. So it's no guarantee that you're going to be able to get them into there right away either. So once again, I think it comes back to sending them the PSA and waiting a year, because at $20 a card, even in a PSA 9, I think you're going to do pretty okay and be able to at least make a decent amount of profit on a 9 at that point. Because I don't see like a Spider-Man and a PSA 9 going for less than $50 even a year from now. I could be wrong. Who knows? So the PSA price changes kind of threw a whack into all this. And I still believe that the PSA 10 is going to be the one that holds all the value in the long run. And the reason why I think the PSA 10s are going to hold value is because of how tough of grades these are. So I've actually been tracking the PSA Pop Report since the beginning of February. So this is going back about 5 weeks or so. And this is the PSA cards, non-holograms, just base cards that have been added to the 90 Marvel Universe Pop Report over the last 5 weeks. So we have 30 10s, 27 9s, 21 8s, 4 7s, 12 6s. Ouch. A 5 and a 4. So, early on, people were talking about, oh my Lord, there's going to be PSA 10s flying out of the woodwork. And at least so far, that has not been the case. Now, I don't know how many of these were already sitting there, or people that sent express orders or super express orders in. But you would assume people sending at that level are very confident in what they're getting. And you could see the 9 to 10 split is fairly even. And that's also a lot of 8s. You would never see that type of split on like an ultra modern sports card. That would be unheard of to see this number of 8s on a pop report. Even this many 9s would be obscene, in my opinion, on a modern card. So this right here is a very large number of 8s, and this is crazy. 12 6s. So you have more 8s, 7s, 6s, 5s, and 4s than either PSA 9s or 10s. And once again, I think this right here, this is the important one. The 10s is where all the money is. And I always thought that was going to be the case, because I think there's going to be a lot of these. So to give you an idea, I've pulled over, these are the current pop report totals as of Sunday of the various grades. And you could see prior to this exactly how many 10s, how far 10s were outpacing 9s. Well, now look just in the last month how even this is. And same thing here. Prior to, well, this is including these numbers, but you can see how little 8s there were compared to 9s and 10s. And now look how close 8s are hanging with 10s and 9s. And 6s have actually passed up 7s, which is a weird little quirk. But you could see of the recent stuff submitted, these numbers are very close to identical to each other, whereas previously they're not. Now, I think a lot of this has to do with, if you were sending this stuff in prior to 2021, you were probably pretty confident that it was getting a 10. I think this is showing us people grading, not knowing what they're doing, like we've talked about before. So where do I think this all goes? As I've mentioned a couple different times, I think the 10s hold pretty good value going forward. I do believe there is going to be some appeal to pairing these up. I mentioned it in the mail day video the other day. I showed it. The one I think that came out Saturday morning. If you didn't catch that, go back and look. In that mail day video, I had a Secret Wars 8 CGC 9.8 that I got in. And I also had my PSA 10 Black Suit Spider-Man still that I hadn't sold. I had sold it, but I hadn't shipped it yet. It was shipping out later that day. And I said, this is the case. I showed it on camera and I took a couple photos and said, this is the case for why these cards are going to hold value, because they looked fantastic together. I'm not going to lie. I took everything I had to ship out that Black Suit Spider-Man, even though I know I needed to, because it was sold and, I made a good return on it and whatnot. But having those two things on my desk for like a half a day and just looking at them, I was 100% sold on why I think these cards are going to hold value and people are going to want them, whether it's to pair with a comic or just to hold as an alternative asset to a comic. And I definitely have already heard a lot of rumblings of people wanting to put sets together of 90 Universe graded. It's been in the back of my mind for a while. I'm going to wait to see how my other grades come back and kind of go from there. But it may be one of my long-term goals is to try to throw a set of this together, maybe in PSA 9 or something, depending on how prices kind of falter out. Might be able to put together a PSA 8 set pretty cheaply in about a year once stuff starts coming back in. So, but I am still bullish on at least the 90 Marvel Universe stuff. The other stuff's all come down to, once again, 90 Marvel Universe seems to be leading the way as it goes in price. Everything else seems to go in price, and everything else is kind of pulled back the same amount. Now, like 96 Marvel Masterpiece has still been doing extremely well. That's not going to change. That set was hot before any of this stuff happened. Fleer Retro, PMGs, all that sort of stuff are still going to have really good value. That's not going to change. If anything, they're probably higher than they have ever been, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. So my plan going forward is the stuff that I still have to grade, because I still have a pile of stuff to send into grading from that box that I opened. And it's more random characters, like Professor X, Aunt May, Archangel, Cyclops, C-list villains and stuff like that I think have a good shot at 10ing, but I just didn't want to pay the $50 or $75 a card to do it because I was concerned about what the resale value would be on the lower characters by the time they came back to me. So I think the play might be to wait out the other grading companies until they start taking them. Like I said, the one that I am intrigued, the two that I'm intrigued by the most are pairing it in a CGC slab if it's CGC that grades them and not CSG, because that would match the comic books, or HGA. So this is what Zion looks like with they call it parallel matching, since this is a blue disco. They color matched, and you can see how this is blue splash with a blue label underneath the 9 over here to the border of the card. They will also match the jersey. So my thought process is replace Zion with a red and blue Spider-Man classic outfit. Now replace the splash with red, here and here, and then this background is blue, or vice versa. How cool would that look? Matching Spider-Man's suit, like a cosmic Spider-Man or something like that. So I'm very intrigued by that. So I may hold on to what I have left, let the stuff that I already have at PSA at the cheaper prices play itself out, and maybe submit some of my other stuff to them once they allow comic book grading, but that might be a couple months. I may end up sending some of it out to PSA at bulk and just, whatever happens. I don't know yet. I'm going to let my express order and one of the other orders process before I make a decision. So that's personally what I'm doing. So I still think the market's going to be strong for this stuff. It's not going to be as wild and crazy as it was a couple months ago. There are a couple things that could happen that could change that, though. If major influencers start talking about it again, tweeting about it, etc., IG posts, whatever, the market could easily spike back up again. These population counts are still extremely low on this stuff. So there's not a lot of inventory out there for even the smallest demand spike. I can tell you right now, and I will not tell you who, but people in the SCI Discord have figured out that one major influencer has been buying these up. Because some people in that Discord have made sales on eBay, and you could see who's buying your stuff on eBay. And if this person starts talking about it, and it is not Gary Vee, I will tell you that right now. If this person starts talking about it, it could definitely spike the market again. I can 100% see that happening. So that is not out of the question as well, that we see another resurgence in the market if this person begins talking about it and hyping it and whatnot. And also, like I said, it's not like Marvel's going anywhere. They have a decade full of movies and shows and Disney Plus and this, that, and the other thing planned out. So they're going to continue to be front of mind. But once again, I think it's all tied up in the PSA 10. So that's kind of the Marvel market update at the moment where we presently sit. I will continue down this journey with you all as I get PSA submissions back, grade more, rip more stuff, etc., etc. The PSA price changes, I think, are the biggest thing that's going to impact this. Now, the interesting thing is it could actually help us for those of us that got cards in the PSA already, because I think anyone else grading these is going to be taking the slow approach. So for those of us that got cards in before the price increase, we're going to have inventory on hand before them and also at a lower cost to entry. So we will have a little bit of advantage when it comes to that. So let me know what you guys think down below. That's all I got for you guys. We'll catch you on the next one. Peace.